Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of Hit Reviews with your host, Arlyeon. On today's episode, I'll be talking about a title that was requested by Tay, a member of our Discord and Twitch. Namely, this review is centered around Greg Lobanoff's Wandersong, with a sprawling story, a mixture of music, and platforming resting at its heart. It promised something different. So find out if my experience with this Bard's Tale ended on a high note, or if it left me feeling downbeat. Well, when it comes to the game's story arc, I really didn't know anything about Wandersong going in other than, you're a bard. But it also really didn't take it long to introduce me to a few key elements, namely the combination of positivity and humor that rests at the heart of its writing, in the face of things kicking off with a dream-delivered portent of impending Armageddon. Normally, that sort of thing is really heavy, and played for an immense amount of drama, and yet the game also drives home another point. You aren't the hero. You're a bard of a nebulous name, read selectable, who's simply doing his best in the face of this discovery and seeing what he can do to help people. I mean, yes, he does end up meeting a surly, grumpy witch who's the best character ever, and he does end up trying to figure out an alternative way to save the world with their help, but honestly, it happily avoids the whole stab monsters in the face equal days saved trope. And it just works. There's a lot of people to talk to, bits of story to indulge in, silliness to wreak, and yet it's not an overly saccharine experience either. There's genuine moments that crop up where the characters struggle and the issues they face are things that I could empathize with, albeit at a different scale. It's a legitimately well-written story, and it managed to evoke a lot of emotions in me. Feelings of joyful discovery, of damn son, that's really familiar, shit's rough, and also just to being touched by certain moments. And I will 100% admit that whilst I wasn't exactly a fan of the Bard's rival, their journey was also something I found compelling to follow, even if they simultaneously managed to stoke an absolutely intense rage in my heart due to all their shenanigans, and personality traits, and just about everything about them. And, you know, that overall goodness and everything I'm talking about doesn't just start and stop with the story either. Oh no! It also happens to be an extremely delightful game mechanically as well. See, Wandersong is a cross between a music game and a platformer with a dash of adventure in the mix. Each segment of the game is divided into a chapter, with each one having its own distinct flavor story-wise, but also stylistically up to and including its music, as the game provides different ways for you to use your music to interact with the world. Also, the soundtrack is just so good between the different sections, as well as just providing distinct platforming obstacles. There's also a bit of just puzzle solving scattered throughout the game in its secrets, of which the majority are tied to unlocking spiffy new dances to provide you new means of wandering around, which led to, admittedly, one of my favorite things, which was when I discovered the ability to aggressively dab at everything in your way. And honestly, there's a lot to do in the world at large, since a number of objects and even some people react with your ability to sing, just allowing you to get up to hijinks. And I also discovered that there was at least one puzzle that had an alternate solution to it that I more or less resolved through stubborn stupidity / pacifism. But for those in the audience who can't deal with an entire game of happy pacifism, there is a change of pace in the midst of things. You get to swap over to an alternate character and go through a bit more traditional hack and slash platforming. And honestly, this segment was pretty neat. I vaguely wish that there'd been more to it, but at the same time, it does an immensely good job of helping flesh out the story as a whole, while also adding a nice bit of novel gameplay to break things up. Though I'd say that even without it, the game manages to introduce so many unique ways to wield your powers and approach exploration, platforming, and even boss battles, well, of sorts, that you'll never find things growing stale. Okay, so for a game called Wandersong, which follows the adventure of Bard, you'd at least have the expectation that the sound quality would be good. And you wouldn't be disappointed in the case of this title, because man, I was so incredibly happy with the soundtrack. Whether the soundtrack as a whole or just it by chapter, it was fun, it was engrossing, it could be touching, heartwarming, heartbreaking. The sound effects were on point. And even just the sounds associated to the Bard's singing were a lot of fun to use, and the ways they'd interact with other bits of music in the world. Honestly, I think the only part I didn't like was I had to compose my own music, since I am a tone-dead lunkhead, and ended up inadvertently making like horrible caterwauling on an accordion. So much regret. And oh, yes, the visual department? The visual department is something else I'm going to be raving apart, since I just really enjoy the game's overall art style and presentation. It was a lot of fun to see the characters' designs and their various expressions, and the world was immensely pretty to discover. Really, the only thing I can actually be nitpicky about here is that the lighting in some of the areas could make it a little bit tricky for me to discern the colors on the song wheel, which could make it a little bit hard to line up colors for me. Which, to be fair, didn't really impact me for a single puzzle in the entire game until the post-game. So, I mean, that's fair. It just made things a little bit trickier than it was supposed to be. Anyways, yeah. Okay, so if you've been following along with this review, you're not apt to be entirely surprised by my final thoughts. But it is tradition, so let's get it underway. First off, whilst the music and overall character designs and animations are absolutely lovely and brought a smile to my face a number of times, it really was the story that captivated me the most. That's not to say the gameplay isn't solid. I legitimately found myself digging the different ways the developers could introduce puzzles along the way, and new ways to use your ability to sing while keeping it extremely accessible. Honestly, just figuring out the exact way to use the singing mechanic was sometimes part of the puzzle. But at the end of the day, the part that hit me the most was just how well thought out and solid the story was. The pacing for all the chapters, the characters you come across, and the ones you follow who rest the center of the story, it was just so good. And I felt genuinely happy when I bumped into some of them again. Mostly. I mean, the rival can find a hole and nicely die in it, but that's actually also as a result of the writing. Not because the rival is poorly written or annoying either, but because they managed to invoke such an incredibly strong reaction through their motivations and the way they go about achieving their goals. Like, they were so well written as to provoke that absolute revulsion for who they were. Honestly, it's just altogether a profound experience, and for that, as well as all the other factors at play, I more than happily rate Wandersong as a crit hit, and one of the more solid ones that I have rated in the course of running these reviews. Anywho, thanks for tuning in. If you agree, disagree, or just have something to say, feel free to comment. And for those interested in more indie reviews, developer interviews, podcasts, or just our Monday TTRPG content, I know it's sometimes delayed, these things happen, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you know when there's a new release. There's also Discord. Click the link in the banner in the description so you can become a part of our community, the Crit Hit Cauldron. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel, we do have a coffee running now to help supplement funds for our lovely editors and make sure we can continue to provide quality content again. Again, check the description plus banner for them links. Anywho, I'll catch you on the next episode of Crit Hit. Take care till then, folks.